Welcome everyone. Today we have our another new episode, and this episode is very very important. And I get very like good response about this topic because many organizations and healthcare system policymakers, different academia, they are really interested about this topic. So we have our new friends, Madam Jennifer's, and I think she is running for city mayor. This is very very
Yes,
important, and hopefully everybody will support her, especially from her
thanks.
place. Yes, we have Professor Edward, like extremely hardworking professor, always support World Talent Economy Forums. We have our all of our speaker, they are very dynamic and supportive, Mr. Aaron as well as Professor Donald. Beside that, one of the political analysts as well as ex-parliament members, Ali Nawaz Mahmoud Khoyam, he will join with us. So I want to start from Jennifer's. Today's our topic is personalized life extension. How do you want to analyze today's topic? And beside that, we want to learn more about your election campaign. So you can share your experience with us.
Thank you. I think that there's a lot of different ways that we could expand personalizing life extension. One of the main things probably is going to be to get the information out to more people, which everybody that's working in it has been trying to do, obviously, up till this point. But because a lot of people still don't even realize that life extension comes from anything that we're doing to prolong life. All the technologies and the medicines and the things that we've developed so far have been to help extend our life longer. And persons in this field are just looking to do that and to do as much more of keeping ourselves living longer and having a healthy quality of life while we're alive also. And just to let people know what it is. What it really means. Thank you for asking about the campaign. I'm running for mayor of our city, and I do have healthy life extension on my platform proposals. So it's definitely a big part of what I want to do here. Is not even just meeting and bringing ourselves up to the highest quality of life that we have now, but to try and do as much research and connection and networking with persons to even have our city develop even more past what we already have.
Thank you, Professor Edwards. How do you want to analyze today's topic? What can we do for this kind of research?
Well, the first thing, of course, if we're talking about personalizing life extension, is to educate ourselves. And here we're in a good situation because there's been so much work, research done on what causes aging, and therefore what
No,
potentially can there he is, what can potentially cause or allow us to extend our lives. And for your listeners, because I know you have an extremely literate audience, I would suggest two basic books. Lifespan by David Sinclair is an excellent book. It looks at the epigenetic issues involved in aging, and Ending Aging by Aubrey de Grey, who is the sort of the dean of aging anti-aging research. So those two books I really would recommend. You can get them on Amazon. I do a lot of jogging, speaking of keeping healthy, and so I listen to a lot of these books when I'm running. So that's the first thing to do. And seriously, and policymakers as well should do this. I mean, one of the things I'm trying to do, I'm in right outside of Washington, D.C. My background, for those of you who are, regular listeners, is, as you know, is public policy. I've done this for some decades. And so one of the things I'm trying to do moving ahead, especially after the pandemic, is to raise the consciousness of legislators and lawmakers and policymakers and so forth, both in Washington and elsewhere, of what is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I would say a couple of things about personalizing it. First of all, remember, because you have an audience in different countries, different levels of development, what I'm going to say has to be applied in different ways. What's going to apply in parts of, say, rural Bangladesh or Malaysia is going to be different from what is going to apply properly in Kuala Lumpur or in Manila or some other place. But the first thing I would do is say, take your own health and well-being seriously. So many people have the attitude that, well, you're going to be born, you're going to have hopefully a flourishing and healthy life, and then you're going to get sick and you're going to die, because it's happened since human beings have been around. And
Yes.
the idea of changing that mindset and saying, you know what, I really have to try to live long enough so that I can actually live to 100, 200, or however long, is something that we have to tell people. Look, you don't have to well, maybe you still will age and die, but the point is you don't have to do it too soon, and you don't have to be in very bad shape in the latter years of your life. I'll give you a couple of other very important points to keep in mind. This is especially important in, I think, some of the more developed areas of Asia, certainly Kuala Lumpur, Japan, places of that nature. We now have incredible technology, for example, where you can sequence your own genome. In the year 2001, it cost about, I think it was $100 million to sequence the genome. And by the way, the guy who did that, the guy named Venter, his headquarters was right about 6 miles from where I'm sitting right now. So I feel like I'm in part of history here. It cost about $100 million. In 2007, it cost $10 million. Today, it's under $1,000. I know one company that does it for 500. So what you can do as an individual is sequence your own genome, find out what diseases or whatever or illnesses you have a propensity for, and that way you're already ahead of the game in terms of looking, of taking care of yourself. What you're going to see in the future is this. Right now in the United States and in most developed countries, we don't have healthcare system. We have a sick care system. Basically, you get sick and then you argue with Medicare or your insurance company or your government or whoever's paying for it about who's going to pay for how much or whatever. That's
If
a
you
sick
have
care
insurance.
system. If you have insurance. And I mean, some countries, Canada has sort of universal health care, and you get what you pay for in a sense, because so many Canadians come to the United States rather than waiting 6 months for a routine thing. So there's problems here. But the point is this. A healthcare system can be developed and can save billions of dollars if, for example, one of the things we have now is more and more real technology and diagnostics. The Aura Ring is for sleeping, but sleep problems. But we're getting to the point where you can have real world monitoring of your heart, of your whole biome, your whole system, and you can have that real time data going to a database monitored by an artificial intelligence and AI, so that if you are in danger of having a heart attack, the AI is going to see that because they have your genome, and the medics are going to be to your door before you even know it. But with a real healthcare system, you probably won't have that heart attack, because what we've been able to do, and just literally in the last couple of months, there have been breakthroughs in the CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing tool. For example, one of the experiments is to turn off the production of tau proteins in neurons. And neurons clumping together is what causes Alzheimer's. My poor mom has Alzheimer's, and it's not a very pretty situation. I wish they had that earlier. But again, they're experimenting. There's a piece in, I think it was the Wall Street Journal recently, about using this to turn off other potential diseases. There's a woman who had a heart attack in her early 30s. Heart attacks usually are for older people. Well, now they've been looking at how we could basically, with her going into her liver and her system, discovering exactly where the cholesterol is being made, and essentially turn off the production of cholesterol. That's what we're talking about in the future, dealing with kinds of situations. But again, I stress that it starts with educating yourself, taking care of yourself, diet, exercise. These are easy to do. I'm an old guy and I go out and I jog 50 minutes a day. So there, if I can do it, you guys can do it too. So that would be my introductory to what everyone is going on.
Thank you.
I got to put my 10-year-old kids to bed very soon, so that's part of what I have to do as well. But I want to listen to the others very quickly.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you, thank you. We have our another analyst. Especially, we do focus on developing nations. Especially, he is my teacher. He is from Bangladesh because I grow actually in Rajbari, a small places in Bangladesh. He was parliament member for Rajbari, as well as he was city mayor 3 times, and very influential political leaders. As well as we have our another future mayor from Florida, Jennifer. She's also running for
New
election.
Jersey, New
Sorry,
Jersey.
New Jersey. Sorry, New
Yeah.
Jersey.
Thank you,
She's running
everyone.
for. Yes, yes. So I love to learn more about the healthcare system right now in Bangladesh, because it will help us to understand the global community, because we have our Professor Donalds from USA, Aaron from USA, Jennifer from USA, and Professor Edward actually running a think tank, which is another influential think tank in USA. And we have our political analyst, Mr. Alinaz Mahmoud Khoyam. So, Mr. Khoyam, so how do you want to analyze the healthcare system right now inside Bangladesh? Maybe we can get a outcome what is going on inside developing nation.
Thank you very much. And I'm very honored to get opportunity here to discuss here and also listen your valuable discussion. Actually, the topics was how we can enhance our lifetime. That is the question. Globally, all people is trying to enhance their lifetime, but it's very difficult. You know that we know that we cannot stop the death,
Hmm.
but we can enhance our increase our lifetime. Well, once I would like to mention here that I hear one thing that the baby already has come in the on the earth who will live 1,000 years. So we can think now. We can think now that we can extend our life up to 1,000 years. And it depends on the social various matters. The I should say here were two things. One thing is the environmental question, and another thing is the scientific method.
Hmm.
In like our country, there is a lot of problems here is going on every day, like the pollution, the environmental problem, the huge population in this country, and it is very difficult to take care of these people with our very small financial capacity. And the food problem and treatment problem, medical problem, and all sorts of many kinds of problems we belong here. So it is very difficult for us to maintain all the health caring.
Hmm.
It's depend. I think depend health caring. The lifetime increasing it depend on the major part of the health caring is very important issue. I think so. You
Hmm.
see, I think in 1900, uh, before 100 years ago, the developed countries, the life average life was 42 years, but now it is in our country about 72. So it depends the development of the society, how the society is running. The society is
Hmm.
running smoothly, and the society, the people is getting all the facilities from the government side, and the social environment and the system is developing. Then the automatically your lifetime will increase. I think so. So it is very important to mention here that we should think about the improvement of the socio-economic condition of the developing countries.
Hmm.
Another issue is very scientific. I think so. How we can change our gene and our life. One thing I should say that if you continue, if you increase your youth time, then it will be. Uh, I think it will help for us to increase your lifetime. One thing you see that the boy who is now 25, 26, his death possibilities is very, very low. But if the you go the after 40, 45, then 60, it is difficult to say that he will alive more than more times. He will be he can he can die anytime. So it is dependent that your physical condition, the gene condition, and your youth time. If you can increase your youth time, then it is possible to increase your health lifetime. I am very hopeful that the science will do that. It is very big subject. I am not very aware about that thing. So I'll be happy if I know from you. And this is my humble submission to all of you to think about the developing country to improve the environment, socio-economic condition, and the medical facilities, etc. Thank you very
I,
much.
I have one question specifically for the present situation. What we observe from India, India face a very challenging situation because of COVID. As we are discussing about life extension, COVID is a big challenging situation. So, what condition right now in Bangladesh? You are a representative of the people, and I know it's a millions
Yeah,
of
yeah,
people.
yeah.
Yes.
You know,
So,
before two
Bangladesh
months,
health. Yes, yes.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
yes, yes. You can share.
before 2 months, the COVID situation was very bad. Every day was people was dying like every day, 100 over. But now it is some extent under control. Now, but the Indian that virus that is a very dangerous thing, and also the border
Mhm,
side of the Bangladesh, that area is now is very badly affected, and now
mhm,
we are very upset about this thing that though our people is controlling through their livelihood, but the Indian problem, the Indian virus is coming to across the
mhm,
border, and it may be a serious condition. So government is taking many measures to control the situation, and overall situation is under control in Bangladesh. I think so. It is not very dangerous still now.
mhm.
Till now, it is not very dangerous, but it is very bad thing is going on in our country. Our economy is in trouble. Our social life is in trouble. We are facing various trouble in this country for this COVID-19. So it depends. It is very difficult to control ourselves because this problem is in over worldwide is going on. So I think it will reduce. Some days ago, a couple days ago, it was decreasing, but last 2 week it is increasing. It is so we are thinking about it, how we can face the problem.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
Let's
you.
see.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, Professor Donald, how do you want to? I just want to give some feedback from developing nations. What's going on inside? It's just sharing the experience and the views. So, Professor Donald, how do you want to analyze the personal life extension issues?
Well, I think his point was very important for us to think about, which is that if your life expectancy in the particular social environment where you live is 50, then if you could extend your life to the countries with very long lives, like
Yeah.
Japan, for instance, then you've done a lot of life extension right there. So, I mean, personal life extension, um, as he said, has a huge social I mean, it's estimated that 1 in 8 people in the United States, the richest country in the world, have food insecurity in 2021. And what that means is that they get up in the morning and they're not sure that week they will be able to do everything they need to do and eat also. So, I mean, and if you don't have enough to eat, you don't sleep as well. If you don't sleep as well, that's devastating on your health. Good sleep is one of the most important things that there are. I've been kind of at the edge of the scientific aspect of life extension from the first world perspective for a long time. When I was in college, I had a friend that worked for Linus Pauling Institute, and I got to meet Linus Pauling. He was doing some of the earlier work with nutraceuticals, as we call them now, but nutrition. And my friend was a vegetarian all the way back then. And he walked into my house, and my mother didn't like sugar because she read Adele Davis, Let's Eat Right to Keep Fit. So my whole life, I didn't eat sugar, or rarely ate sugar, and I took vitamin C every day my whole life. And it worked, because you may not be able to tell, but I'm 135 years old.
You look fantastic. Wow. Give me some more vitamin C.
Okay.
No, but nonetheless, I think that there's a lot to it. For anybody that doesn't know, there's an organization that funds themselves basically selling selling supplements, but they actually fund research and research chairs at universities, and they go through a lot of the research, and it's called Life Extension Foundation. And they're a very good organization. I have a friend that was on the board.
Their supplements are good. They work good. They work well.
Yeah, there's an organization called Consumer Lab, which tests supplements, because supplements are not tested by any government, the FDA or anything. So I subscribe to Consumer Lab, and you can see which ones are, generally get super high marks. And Life Extension is always, basically they ask the question, does it really have what it says in it, in the quantities that it says that it has? And is it adulterated with other stuff? Like, does it have lead and all this stuff in it? And so you can be careful, but that's neither here nor there. But I see a lot of papers myself that convince me that I should be taking certain things. And one difficulty with it is, I forget, there was just something, it'll come back to me, but I think it's got to do with CoQ10. There's quite a lot of studies that show that CoQ10 helps the heart muscles contract. And people, especially that take Lipitor, which is a drug it's called a statin, which is a drug, or it's also called as torvastatin. But any of the class of statins, the chemical pathway that creates cholesterol, it blocks that, so you don't create as much cholesterol. But that's the same chemical pathway that creates CoQ10. And CoQ10 is a natural part of your body, and it helps your heart muscles contract. And so there's quite a few studies, but they're small, like 500 people, double-blind studies that show that people with congestive heart failure who take CoQ10 have much better and longer quality of life. And I'm pointing that out just simply because with these small studies, what will wind up happening, sadly, is that then later on, when we do a really big study, it'll turn out that actually it didn't work. So I want to point that out. And I think I'll stop now because I have several other things I'd like to talk about. But I know what I want to say. One example is metformin has been shown to help express a gene that actually extend your life. And right now, and a lot of small studies have done it, but right now, Stanford University, and I put the link in the thing, is actually doing a large-scale study with metformin. And what I want to say is the number of large-scale studies that have been done about this stuff is very, very small. So we really have a lot of hope, but we don't have a lot of knowledge.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Aaron, how do you want to analyze today's topic?
So as far as life extension goes, there's some things you got to understand. The first of all is telomeres. So telomeres are sort of like a fuse that, when the fuse runs out, you run out of time, your cell self-destructs. And I don't want to get into the specifics of, telomeres and their functions and all that, but think of it as a fuse for your cells. Now, there are things that try to damage your DNA. Toxins in food, lack of nutrition will damage your DNA and your cells. Overexposure to different forms of radiation, different types of UV light. So preventing cellular apoptosis or cell death is one of the key factors in life extension, and telomere lengthening is paramount in that. There has been already studies that have come out on the effects of lengthening telomeres. In vitro, now this isn't in human subjects, but in vitro, they're actually able to directly wind back the biological clock of individual cells. Human cells, just not in living humans, And I am looking forward to a lot of more study in that field because telomere lengthening is essentially one of the golden gateways towards tackling the aging issue by preventing cellular degradation. Now, as far as that goes, things like CRISPR-Cas9, things like Retron library recombination are going to make this so much easier, so much simpler, so much safer. Because there is a drawback to lengthening telomeres, and that is that it increases the risk of cancer dramatically. So as cancer solutions come out with Retron library recombination, they'll be able to mitigate some of the negative effects of telomere lengthening. Another very important factor in this that has been touched on is nutrition. People don't realize how much you deprive your body of key nutrients, micro and macronutrients, which are vitamins, minerals, and then the macronutrients are, your fats, proteins, and your carbohydrates. And this is where I urge you to do research. Look up dieting for longevity. Look into fasting practices and their effects. And that's another big thing is fasting. Now, we can mimic some of the effects chemically, but these have direct effects on lowering cortisol levels by essentially forcing your body to use it. Things like fat and cholesterols are due to an imbalanced diet and an imbalanced regulation of diet, because we've gotten really cozy in our lives. We eat a lot of big meals every day, and our body never gets around to burning half of the stuff. And a lot of that stuff turns into bad stuff when it's around in excess. So just limiting and balancing your diet can extend your lifespan dramatically. And I mean dramatically. Just doing any one of those things is going to add several years on your lifespan. And doing them all in conjunction with research to dieting it for longevity. I personally have already seen some incredible effects. I've seen, ever since I started, dieting to be healthier, I've seen, a decrease in wrinkles. I'm pushing 30. I already had some grays, I already had some wrinkles, and I personally have seen some fantastic anti-aging effects, as well as in how I feel, in my joint health, in my bone health, just by balancing nutrition and allowing my body time to properly use everything that I put in it. This combined with telomere lengthening, combined with advances that are coming out in, say, hyperbaric oxygen, which is where you sit inside of a chamber and it's pressurized, and the air that's being fed to you is pressurized oxygen. This shows that the studies that are being done on these hyperbaric chambers have shown absolutely breathtaking results in winding back biological clocks, cellular regeneration, muscular regeneration.
Bumped off.
And so things like hyperbaric oxygen and hyperbaric chambers, things like complete nutrition and dieting, both on a macro and micronutrient level, as well as, regulating your dietary practices or attempting fasting, there's no reason that just with these things, which we have right now, you can't live, who knows, maybe well over 200. And that's just with advancements that are here now. So anyways, that's kind of my take on it, and I'll pass it right along. Thank you.
Thank you. Professor Edward, you are running a think tank, and we already share with our audience that you are doing a lot of research work on life extensions. So what type of strategy, especially developing nations, even we have our policymaker in our discussions, we can take, and I want to more emphasize on research, how we can develop some research related activities.
Okay, well, let me say a few things. By the way, in terms of the fasting and some of the things that Aaron talked about, again, this book, Lifespan by David Sinclair, goes over some of that material. So again, if you want to get a little bit more background, that would be there. I'll also mention in terms of telomeres, which are on the chromosomes, and every time the cell reproduces, the telomere gets shorter and eventually disappears, and that's what we call aging. In April of 2018, I think this was at a lab in Paris working with Berkeley. Scientists were able to sequence the enzyme telomerase, which is what keeps telomeres growing. And so again, this should have been on the evening news and should have been in all the newspapers. It's so important, but you never saw it anywhere except for on wonderful shows like this. And so, I like to give a little bit of good news during some bad times. So there's something that I can pass along to you. But your question about less developed countries, I've worked in less developed countries and on those policies since the late 1980s, and have traveled to a lot of places in South America, to Kenya, Tanzania, and other places. And again, the first thing indeed is just focusing on the basics: clean water, electricity, because that allows you to refrigerate food, for example. It allows you to keep the heat or the cold down, at night, that sort of thing. So the first thing for a country, of course, that's still emerging is those sorts of basics. And unfortunately, what you've seen in I know a lot about Africa, a little less, and Latin America is a little bit different. But one of the problems is that a lot of foreign aid goes in and it just disappears. Politicians, not the one we're talking to here, but we'll take it, or it'll be misspent or whatever. And again, I have a lot of experience seeing that sort of thing. But the good news is that we have a lot of private nonprofits that are working in this area. In Africa, for example, there's an inventor, Dean Kamen, in the United States, who's a famous inventor, and he invented a thing called the slingshot, which is a device that's about the size of a very small refrigerator that can be powered by almost anything, like buffalo dung. I mean, you can use almost anything to power it, and it can produce clean water out of the dirtiest puddle. And he's working on getting that distributed in Africa, for example. Bill Gates, who's of course known as the founder of one of the founders of Microsoft, and so forth, has been doing some work in Africa where, again, it's not just the government, it's maybe in partnership with government, especially with local governments, dealing with these very basic health issues. Vaccines is another thing, not just COVID vaccines, but there are a lot of vaccines that have been very successful in wiping out things like smallpox in less developed countries. So the first thing I would say is focus on the essentials: clean water, power, electricity, toilets and sewage, those kinds of things. That's obviously the first thing, and try to get around some of the logistic problems you sometimes have with certain governments. Have partnerships with people like Bill Gates if you can. That would be the first thing I would recommend. And then as you think ahead, as a government, and especially in economies that really are emerging very, very well. And again, Malaysia's one. Singapore is obviously at the top already. Singapore is one, the Philippines is one, and I could go over others. You have an opportunity. And India, by the way, which has a middle class of 200 million to 250 million people, which is almost the U.S. population. these countries have an opportunity of trying to set up a real healthcare system as opposed to a sick care system. Don't copy what we've done in the West necessarily. Look at ways that you might incorporate incentives, for example, to monitor your health in real time, to do these kinds of things that Aaron was talking about in terms of diet, exercise, things like that. Emphasize those kinds of issues. Meditation, if you're into that. This is not necessarily a religious thing. It's a matter of clearing your mind, of clearing tensions from your body, that sort of thing. So I would say be entrepreneurial if you're in an emerging economy. Don't just say, well, I guess we have to copy Canada if we want a healthcare system that is, guaranteed, or the United States if we want a mixed system, or if Israel actually has a very good system. Don't necessarily just copy them. Look for the lessons and then try to come up with something appropriate for the local situation.
Thank you. Madam Jennifer, I think you want to share some point about cannabis research. Is it helpful for life extensions? And yeah.
Yes. Actually, I wanted to share that research because it is a couple thousand different peer-reviewed research articles, and they're sorted by condition there. I think one of the things that we're just starting to get to look at recently is more into the neurological origin of the sicknesses that we face. There is a big focus on the genetic system. That's come a lot more into research lately. I think probably everybody remembers when the telomerase theory came out originally, and there's been a lot of research into telomere shortening and mitochondrial damages and things like that. There is a lot of research that is starting to finally coming out as we get more development into the neurological system. But when we really take a look at what the neurological system actually is, it's really a framework of our entire bodies. And it's the operating system that controls all the other systems that we have in our bodies, actually. And so a lot of these things that are being studied are actually more indicator systems in regards to what's actually going on with our neurological system. And so as we get more and more technology, and we realize that our neurological system is also includes every signal that goes through our cells and between every cells. So these different things that can happen in our bodies, a lot of them, when you really start to look at it, they originate in the neurological system because they're cellular. There's signals that aren't getting through, or signals that are wrong, or signals that are, in the cases of cancer, they're not getting the signal to go through the normal process where the cells die off. So they're replicating and replicating and replicating. So really, many of the conditions that we face, largely that we pass away from eventually too, are inflammatory signals, just abundances of inflammation that are going on in our body until they wear out one or more parts of us, or cause some kind of malfunction, like a tumor growth and things like that. And so when we do have success in treating these conditions, we see that it does have to do with getting back to basically more of a homeostasis in our body and a regulation. So I wanted to share this research because there is a wealth of information in that document that has been collected from all over the world, and we really get to see that this medicine is one thing that we really should be looking into, because it actually is a non-toxic plant-based medicine that repairs our neurological system and also helps maintain it. So when you get to see through this and looking at is how many actual conditions that it helps, is because these conditions have their root in neurological, basically, insufficiencies. And so this is able to help all the way from all the various cancers that people are experiencing to, seizures, stroke repair, skin problems, because these are all actually have to do with our signaling. and that takes root in there. So I wanted to share it with you guys, just so we can take a look at it, because there are many things too that. Now we're beginning to find out that we can treat non-toxically. Obviously these things that we've been going through, people are just trying to do what they can to interesting, yeah, do what they can to treat it, as far as throwing, maybe even potentially very dangerous treatments at it to try and address what the original root is. But I did want to share that, because once you go through and see how many actual peer-reviewed research from all over the world in regards to this is, hopefully we can expand on the actual system that is our operating system. Of course, we have to focus on the subsystems, and they do have things like that, but we really want to work on the one for extending life that controls these other systems. Because if we are able to maintain our cell signals going out the way that they're supposed to go, and maintain ourselves from getting into these inflammatory states, that's going to be a huge way to extend our life. So yeah, wanted to share
Thank
that
you.
with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. It's really great. Janab Ali Nawaz Mahmoud Khoem, I have a specific things for you. There is a data. You can see the data for Bangladesh education's expending. Bangladesh government expense for educations, because for doing research we need like lot of investment. You see, like in 2007 it was 2.2% of the GDPs. 2009 it's lower again and again. We just invest less in education, less in research. And I have data I can share with you. Bangladesh economically growing very fast. Even in South Asia, Bangladesh economies is much more sustainable than India. Even in many aspects Bangladesh doing good. But when it's come for educations and research, Bangladesh invests less amount of money. 2.2% they like invest for educations. uh, Even in recent 2021 budget. What is the reason why Bangladesh government, even you are politician, you are in parliament, even that time government do not expend too much of money in education? Always they ignore education, always they ignore research. And in South Asia, even they are lower than Nepal, Sri Lanka, Maldives, everything. Even this is the data. What is the reason that we cannot invest on educations and research? What is the reason politicians even neglect education and research? And this is the old scenario of Bangladesh developments.
Uh, Actually, all the situation in Bangladesh because you have son of the soil. Ah,
Exactly,
and
exactly,
what is the
exactly.
political trouble and social trouble is going on here? You know better than me. I know something, but you also know about all the things because our people is developing. Very recently, our economy is going very fast.
Mhm.
But it is true that in our education sector, that is comparatively is not in very good position because we know that there is some political reason. Should I say here? Should I say here? What
Yes,
is
yes.
the political reason?
No,
The
definitely,
here
because
while
they are the all influential think tank, and we are open minded, and we are not criticized. We love to bring
yeah.
solution.
Actually, we got our independence in 1971
Mhm.
through a very bloodshed battle. After that, very few days, we got the democratic rule in our country, but then a very military occupation and many trouble is going on. Now, in the name of democracy, one kind of dictatorship is going on. So here is no actually good opposition in parliament. For that reason, there is no scope to criticism the government activities and also the budget. The last 2 days ago, the budget already has been declared. The budget, and for the reason of COVID, our budget is has gone in favor of the industrialization
Hello. Yes, we can hear you.
sectors. But education, all the institution is closed, you know. This last 1.5 years, all the educational institution is shut down. Our university and schools
Yeah.
and all the institutions is shut down.
Hmm.
And government is giving. It is true that government is not giving a very smart attention. I should say on this
Hmm.
sector. But although our education is going better than past, I think I should say. I think
Hmm.
it will better very soon. We hope for the best. I think so.
But
Thank
somehow, this is my observation. I want to criticize my land first because our politician, our industrialist, even somehow our private investors, they actually ignore education and research. Because example, Jennifer bring very interesting research, Professor Edward bring research, even my friend Mr. Aaron, Professor Donalds. So without research, like how we go further, how we move our communities, education, it's, I'm really astonished how 14 months of a country's all of the educations, school, college, university stop. I'm really astonished. And how we say that
you.
I'm a digital country, I'm a
That
digital
is true.
countries, and we do not have enough like sustainable ecosystem for this educations and other things. And that is the factor you are talking about, social and economical factors. So social
Yeah.
and economical factor will not improve until or unless we invest a lot in educations, because without educated nations, I do not know what will happen in the future. Because after 2 years or 1.5 years, if you bring the students in the education system, I do not know what is their present condition. But I'm worried. I'm really worried. And especially that's why World Talent Economy Forum, we are developing huge content. We have School of Talent Economy 100% free. We have that kind of policy level discussions. And we are targeting actually developing nations. Because example, suddenly Bangladesh or Pakistan or Indonesia, they cannot afford, example, Professor Edward, Professor Donald, or Jennifer, or Aaron's. So but we are developing an open platform. So any students, any youth, any peoples, any policymakers, or anyone around the developing nations, they can utilize our content, and it's 100% free. And I'm sure they will get a real guideline what they have to do. And sometimes I'm astonished how the politician lead the education sectors, even the energy sectors and ICT sectors. It's really big question. But we are open for working, and we want to help each other. It's not criticize. We want to, because if I criticize Bangladesh, it's criticize, I'm criticizing me, myself. But
Right.
yes, yeah, I'm criticizing because you like my father, you actually my teacher as well.
Sure.
Yes. So I'm
I love
criticizing
you very much.
myself. Yes,
Mm.
yes. So
I love.
Professor Edward, I think you have some
Yeah.
great input for that. Yeah.
Yeah, well, since we mentioned that sleep is very important, my two 10-year-old daughters are saying, "Daddy, can you
Okay,
come and
okay.
help us go to sleep?" So I'm going to have to do that in a minute because sleep is important. But I want to end. I want to emphasize that one of the important points that's come up that you've made, Sharif, and several others have made. I've looked at international economic development for again many decades, and there's a direct correlation between economic growth, economic progress, and increases in health, which comes from infrastructure, clean water, as well as being able to afford medicines, as well as being able to afford to analyze what the particular problems of a country might be, and then develop the strategies for doing it. In Bangladesh, it's going to be a little bit different than in Malaysia, and it's going to be different from in different regions and so forth. So your point about education is crucial even beyond just the medical issue. If you have an educated populace in Bangladesh, in Malaysia, and whatever, you're going to be able to build the economy. The more wealth you build, because you have entrepreneurs who are working in tech areas and in bio biotech and all of these other kinds of things, the more you're going to be able to not only understand how best to approach the healthcare issues, but you're going to have the wealth to do it. So this is the education really is that crucial. And I like to say, yes, basics. You have to look at basics first: clean water, sewage, all of those kinds of things. Vaccines that we know can eliminate so many diseases, and they're incredibly cheap, if not free. But once you get to that level, then you have to start making sure you have an education system in place. So I just want to say that you're, as always, you're usually right on the mark. And so I have to go and
Thank
help
you,
my
thank you.
girls with sleep. So thank you very much for, again, a wonderful
Okay,
show.
thank you, thank you, thank you,
Bye, Edward.
thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Professor Donalds, how do you want to add your experience? You are highly experienced researchers from Stanford, and you have very, very interesting views. You actually give a lot of outcomes in World Talent Economy Forum. So how do you want to analyze your California, Silicon Valley experience as well as Stanford experience? How we can improve in this research area?
Well, I want to I'll get to that in a second, but I want to address something that Ali said earlier, which is the question, starting to ask the question about what someplace like Bangladesh can do. And it's something Edward says, which I don't completely agree with, because my wife's in the medical profession, and I hear how she works with her patients because she's been doing it at home. And I understand that the kind of work they're doing, the number one complaint or problem that people have in her population is diabetes. And I'm going to use that as a taking off point to an amazing amount of contradictions. As Aaron pointed out, there's a great thing for fasting. And the one thing that we are very, very sure does extend life, because it extends it in all kinds of critters, and we're very sure it does in people too, is calorie restriction. So basically eating less. In fact, there was this one thing that you can do is go, say, 16 hours a day without eating, and then eat in the other period, the other 8 hours. And there was a paper in Neuroscience News, which I read, Jennifer. It's a really great summary of research articles on neuroscience, that calorie reduction improves people's memory. So both Aaron and, Aaron has mentioned the importance of fasting and things like that. So the reason I'm saying that that's a contradiction, because at the same time, we're worried about people not getting enough to eat. So, and that can be a problem too. So trying to balance these things out is complicated, but there are some things we know. The reason we know that too much sugar literally rots your brain. I mean, I'm not kidding. It absolutely rots your brain. And that's one of the reasons that metformin probably helps you live longer, and it shows that it helps people from getting dementia as soon and things like that. And so, because what it does is it increases your body's ability to process the sugar and basically take it out of your bloodstream. So my thing, going back to my wife and the diabetes, her population's a lot Hispanic. A lot of them are recent immigrants from Mexico. And
diabetes 1, diabetes 2 you're talking about mostly, right? Primarily.
Yeah, diabetes 1 is a different.
Yes, I mean
it's a different. It's an autoimmune thing that's hard to, it's hard to directly address. But, however, type 2 diabetes is addressable. It is a lifestyle thing, and in Latin America, Coca-Cola especially, and the other sugar companies have been just convincing people that the best thing that they can do is drink lots and lots of sugar. And it's actually created huge health problems. So the idea that she was just on a thing with diabetes thing that they're trying to do for prevention at Stanford today. She was on a phone call just before I made this. And so there is a lot of work to try and do prevention. And I'd say that the first thing to try and do would be to try and cut down the amount of sugar people eat. I mean, that's huge. I want to go back to that contradiction thing and point out that when we read stuff about nutrition and life extension, things like that, we're going to get different views. So as the telomeres do extend in theory, I mean, when the telomeres get shorter and they go away, our chromosomes unravel, and that's the end of them. But cell apoptosis is very valuable, because if our cells are doing bad things that we don't want them to do, like propagating viruses, we want to kill the cells.
Or tumors.
Yeah, and as one of the things that sugar does is it binds with your proteins. And so as you age, the reason your skin gets so it's not flexible anymore is because of sugar. Now there's some recent work showing that there's some already existing drugs that can be repurposed to actually cause cell apoptosis in those kinds of cells. So what I'm saying is that there's a lot of contradictions, and I don't want to go there anymore because you asked me about the research thing. And what I think I've told Sharif this, and I'm just going to say something that Sharif and I've talked about, which is that if you have a university, the way the university gets prestige and status is by the amount of papers it publishes, really, in a place. And so in order to develop a research ecosystem, you have to find ways of luring people, professors and people there that can lead the kinds of research programs you need. And that requires money and effort. I want to say one other thing, and that there's a wonderful book called Counterclockwise by a psychologist named Ellen Langer at Harvard. And what she did is she did a study where she got, this back in the 70s, where she got a group of men in their 70s and 80s, and she brought them to a lodge in New Hampshire. And she got her graduate students to go around, and they had cassette tapes and things like that. And they got everything from the 60s, the early 60s. They had a discussion of the Cuban Missile Crisis. They had Buddy Holly, every magazine, so that it was like a time capsule that brought them back into a time 20 years earlier. And as she brought them there, she tested their gait, she tested their cholesterol, she tested everything that they could, cognition, everything that they could think of. And they just went there for 3 days, 5 days, and they pretended that it was 20 years ago. And at the end of 5 days, their cholesterol had gone down, their gait had improved, their cognition had improved, and people that didn't know what they were looking at actually looked at pictures of them and thought they were much younger than they were. So where I'm going with that is that some part of aging is our expectations. Like if we feel we're too old to do things and to run and to learn new things and all these kinds of, I hear people say that. They say, I'm too old to do this. And I go, well, fuck you. I don't even want to be around you. I don't even want to be around you. I don't want to hear stuff like that. That just is, it's not reasonable. And I have a friend who passed away at 103, and she was a musician that was still giving lessons and gigging. And so there's an old saying, which is that you don't get old because you don't stop playing because you get old. You get old because you stop playing. So challenge yourself and enjoy life, and that can that can add quite a few years to your life.
Thank you. Mr. Aaron. Yes.
So first off, I
Mr. Aaron,
want
can
to
you hear me?
agree.
Yes.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say how much I really appreciate what all Donald was talking about, and other people have kind of touched on the mental aspect of this. I think, and this is a very broad thing to say, but I think probably about 90% of life is within the mind or mental. Things like meditation and reducing stress, and meditation is not a religious thing. It is a directly observable physical phenomenon of you going into a relaxed, open, or flow-like state. But these things are, and these things are incredible for improving longevity. Taking control of your mind and relaxing your body, and getting into a sort of a harmony with your environment. Because an organism that can't find equilibrium within a niche inevitably perishes. This is just basic Darwinian philosophy. So that's just kind of my take on it. Now, as far as, again, back to the 90% mental, this is why I think every country's budget for education should be its biggest budget, next to
Exactly.
things like healthcare. And on the subject of healthcare, one of the things preventing that from working here is Americans and our addiction to toxic foods and ridiculous amounts of toxic foods. This is something that bugs me very deeply about my country. And there's almost a cult mentality behind, eating these garbage foods because of how effective the marketing is here for fast food chains, for sugar companies. And quite literally, there are chemicals that a lot of manufacturers will use in their food products that are illegal and banned in other countries. So until we remedy that, we're not going to see the huge changes to longevity here in the United States that people are experiencing in Japan or I'm sorry, the name of it escapes me, but in Asia Pacific in general, people are starting to experience huge lifestyle changes. That are a long way off here because of that cult mentality and addiction, and these chemicals and this diet does trigger that inflammatory response that Jennifer was talking about. So that is a huge part to cell degradation. So getting
pretty much
control
most of it, inflammatory processes.
Absolutely, and getting control of the mind of this whole situation, both in terms of investing in education, in terms of your own mind, and being mindful about how you eat. And being mindful about your mood. And I think that meditation plays a very important role in it. I think that each individual should start taking their health a lot more seriously, because we do stand at the precipice of a great gateway between those who will die and those who will know lives of hundreds of years long. And you're either in with the curve, or ultimately you will be sloughed to the sides of this Darwinian model of life, inevitably, and by your own design. So I very much urge what others have said, that you take your health in your own hand. Do your own research. Don't just listen to one voice here and one voice there. It's a very divided, very hotly debated field. Fund research if you can. I mean, that funding is an incredible part of the research endeavors, and that goes back into the funding of education. So to wrap it up, 90% of this, all of this, is mental. 10%, the other 10% is just following through. Thank you.
Thank you. One specific aspect, I just thinking, and that time Mr. Aaron bringing this point about mental issues. Meditations actually come from South Asia, India, and Bangladesh also have these kind of meditations and these things. We are famous for that, and I'm sure from Silicon Valley's, even Steve Jobs and many creative person, they visited India, they do meditate and they do develop this kind of companies. And I think one of the beautiful things I want to share from Asian perspective, even from Bangladesh or Indian perspective, I think they have a very good family life. Family life it helps them to make them happy. As well as family is very important, because we are very much involved with our family, very much involved with our family culture. So like Alina's Mahmoud Khoyom, he's like my family, my mentors, my teachers. So this is also beautiful things from South Asia, especially from even Malaysia also have beautiful family. They also involved with meditations, China, India. This is also help for life extension. So Madam Jennifer, what's your views, because you are sharing very good content on and research works on life extension. Yes. And we
Yeah, I love
definitely
it.
we want to see you as a mayor, because this kind of highly educated mayor can help their communities very well.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks. This is a very nice way to say. Yeah, no, I think it's actually interesting that that study was brought up. And I had seen that study where people were kept, basically kept away and in a different environment, and focusing, as they had mentioned, on it being years ago, and seeing some noticeable effects in regard to that. It's an interesting concept when we talk about things being mental, or coming from our mind. One of the, I think, the more interesting concepts in regards to that really is the placebo effect. And the placebo effect has been studied so extensively, because it's in many of the studies that are done on everything, in general, on everything in regards to our human biologies. And there's times where the placebo effect is, up to 70% of the time. These are not small numbers of where the placebo effect works. And not a whole lot of attention is actually paid to that, or has been paid as much to it in the past. But what that actually means is that people are going through these studies and they're believing that they're receiving the treatment that they're supposed to be receiving, even though they are not, and they're still expressing the same outcome, or sometimes even a more beneficial outcome even than the actual people that get the medicine that's introduced to them. And so that does show that how much really of an effect we have in programming our own selves. And that ties in and all correlates, of course, with our environment and the food that we eat and things like that too. But it is a huge factor in that. And so if we're able really to focus, and again, these are signals that are being sent out to our body. So these are all neurological things that we're getting back to here. But these are actually signals that we're sending out and programming our body with, that we're receiving a medicine that's going to, or a treatment that's going to work with the condition that we have, even though we're not actually receiving that treatment, and it still has the same desired effect. So those have been studied, and I really wish there would be a lot more study into that. And there's also, small group. I think it's a fairly small group still, though, of scientists and researchers and scientists and just persons around the world that believe that it's a much bigger influence than we think on how we are. Because, there's I have some theoretical papers that I've written with, but other neurologists that I've spoken with and things like that, just in regards to how our environment is shaping us from when we're born, really. Because when you look at what is in our society for the most part, and the way people look at life, pretty much since the moment you're born, you're sort of being programmed to die, because people are kind of right off the bat telling you, every year it's reinforced, you're getting older, you hear everything all the time. It's a reinforcement from everyone around you in society about how you're supposed to age and how you're supposed to feel as you live in these years, and this and that, and kind of just preparing everyone to die. And again, as it was brought up, yes, this is kind of all that anyone has seen so far. Everybody alive pretty much today, everybody sees everybody pass away. But now, as we're having more and more technologies and information out there, I think that a combination factor, at least, needs to be getting the word out there, and that these possibilities are here. They're really already here and being developed, and to stop almost conditioning ourselves, to break down and die. So I think a big part of it is our signaling that's going out from our environment, and also a big part is that we are lacking in the proper neurological nutrients that we need, so that we continue to be able to have these cell signals that are going out everywhere in every cell and connecting every cell, going out the way that they're supposed to be, so our cells can go through the normal replication process that they're supposed to, and not be having all of these signals as we live here longer to inflame, because that really inflammatory process is really what takes most of us out. It really is. So, and the origin of that is why are we having these signals that are going into every part of our body and wearing things out, and causing these issues that we face.
Thank you. Shalinaz Mahmoud Khoyam. So, what the beautiful things you want to add from South Asia, from Bangladesh, for this life extension point of views? Even I saw my grandmother; she actually get a very long lives. So, what the strategy behind that?
No, that is a very important thing. I told you at the beginning of my discussion, I told you that here is two things is for our discussion. One thing is our social and related with socio-economic condition, and another part is related is very much scientific matters. In part, there is family is very important. The family values, family activities, family discipline is very important for a people, for a human being. Think properly, to do properly, to behave properly. So from that point of view, I can say that in our Southeast Asian environment, family practice is quite different from Europe and other side. It is before some days ago. It was combined family. Now the situation already has been changed. Now individual family
Hello.
I think we
Hello.
froze.
Yes. Anyway, I directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today. I
That's too
directly,
bad.
sorry, I directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today.
Hello.
So
He's
I
back.
want to, yes. Can you hear
Okay.
me?
If hello,
Yes,
hearing me?
yes,
Can you hear me?
yes. Continue, please.
If we change our socioeconomic some problems, if we solve our problems, if we develop our some socioeconomic issues, then it can extend our life some extent. I think so. It may be some years, sometimes. But you see, on our earth, there is many animals. Here I should say that's bull whale, vultures. They're enjoying very big life. So we can think about it, how we can make sure to extend our life for long. I told you that the child already has come. This scientist has told us that the child already has earth on the has come on earth, who will enjoy the 1,000 years. 1,000 years he will extend his life. So it is more than important from the family and our society. The science is very important for our life, to protect our youth, to extend our life. I think so. That is. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. I directly want to go for the concluding remarks for today. This is really, really great session for us, and thank you, Jennifer, Aaron's, and Professor Donald for joining today's session, and especially my teacher, my mentors. Even he's my father's friend. Anyway, my father died 2017, and I grew up in a very small places in Bangladesh. It's Rajbari. He was the even parliament member for that, and three-time city mayors, and very, very, very influential political leaders. So actually we respect
Thank you. I
in my
love you so
country.
much. I love you.
Thank you,
I
thank you.
love you so much.
Yes, yes, and he like I started my education from his school, from his college, Onkur Collegiate Schools. I do not know. He was principal. Even you can understand how emotional bondings we have in between teachers, and we respect a lot.
My
And I
great,
believe like
great
like
pleasure
like
to
like
me.
those who are the professor, they are like something special for our society. So that's why even I want to say I sacrifice my life, my passion based on education. My father actually a great hero for me. Whatever I did, I say that it's based on his prayer. Even he was very honest and sincere. I can remember, and I said when he died, I can say honestly, even we do not have uh, a single money or dollars or taka in our bank account, but he always motivate us. He was a lawyer. He was highly educated person, that you have to educate yourself. You have to be like your great friend is your educations.
Yeah.
If you focus on education, you get a very good guidelines and outcome. So from my father I get it, and I try to contribute for the developing nations, because I am from developing nation, but I love to learn from developed nations and to contribute for the developing nations, because the developing nation has huge talent. Trust me, huge talent. That's why our forum name World Talent Economy, because there are many hidden talent in Rajbari, in Bangladesh, in India, in Nepal, in Vietnam, in Malaysia, in Indonesia, in China, many hidden talents. So we are trying to connecting these talents, and only the difference is global exposure. So World Talent Economy forums actually give the global exposure, give the global platforms for the youth communities, those who can develop their knowledge, their experience, and they can learn from the global community, like Professor Donalds, like Jennifer, like Aaron's, like Alina's Mahmoud Khum, like Professor Edwards. We have 100 speakers, 300 more organization already joined in World Talent Economy Forum from 100 different countries. So I request everyone join in our forum, as well as share our content as much as possible. Education is the key. Trust me, education is the key. The more I do research, I find that education is the key. However, you invest on the mega project, in the mega for smart city, for this cineplex, for cricket, for footballs, for entertainment, whatever it is, education is the ultimately the best possible way to solve any kind of problem. And
Yeah.
this is the way that you can develop your youth, and youth can be the futures. And developing nations has Bangladesh has 57% youth. Bangladesh has 160 million people. So more than 80% people actually youth, those who are under 30 years old. So if this 80 million people, it's a huge populations, even it's double, even more than that in Malaysia. So if we can train this youth community, if we can motivate this youth community, if we can give them the real science, real engineering, real technology, what the transhumanists are doing, what Stanford are doing, then we can change our whole ecosystem. Then we can bring the real beauty of the country. So we are trying to minimizing the gap in between developed nation and developing nations, and education is ultimately key. So Mr. Ali Nawaz Mahmoud Kiyom, you are the my teachers, my mentor, and you have responsibility as a political leaders. Please focus on education. And I started my career under your
Sure.
school. I want to see it as a big university. I want to see Rajbari has a very exclusive university for his millions of people, and this is the way ultimately we can solve the problem. So we are working on education. Any kind of support you need for education, we have very like good academic person like Jennifer, like Donald, like Aaron, and
Yeah, that
everyone.
will be a great
So
thing for us.
Yes, yes. So I directly want to go for concluding remarks. First, I want to start from Professor Donalds, then Mr. Aaron, then Jennifer. And so we always want to support Jennifer for his upcoming election.
Thank
And
you. I
yes, yes. And
appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.
finally, Ali Naz Mahmoud Koyem. Professor Donald, what's your concluding remarks for today?
I'm very enlightened from this discussion. I thanks everyone, and I hope we meet again. It is
Yes,
very
I hope to
nice
meet you
discussion
again.
for me.
Thank you. Thank you. Professor Donald, what's your concluding remarks?
Thank
I wanted to say something kind of amusing, which is that we've been learning more and more and more that our brains are controlled by bacteria in our stomach. And we're just finding this out that we don't understand the connection, but depression, that if you have certain kinds of flora in your in your gut, you're going to wind up being depressed. And if you have other ones, you're probably not going to be depressed. So somehow there's this relationship between like creatures that live in us and our own brains and thoughts and health. So it's very complicated. I also wanted to say that it was funny that you mentioned meditation in India and Steve Jobs, because I was just thinking about that today. I've been kind of offline because of COVID. And so just today I contacted my friend Dan Kotke, and Dan was the guy that went to India with Steve Jobs. And he's told me a lot about Steve Jobs' spiritual practice during the time. That would be another entirely different episode. But I really have to agree with Aaron that you can
you
find
hear?
places that do scientific meditation. I mean, they don't have anything to do with religion. They didn't even come out of the regular meditation things. They just develop it, and it actually changes your frontal lobe. It actually creates neural growth in your frontal lobe, in the area that helps you executive function, in the area that makes you be able to have self-control. So, but again, and the final thing I want to say is I just think it's exciting what you're doing, because all we're talking about, we have first world problems, as they say. I mean, that's a joke we have in California when we complain about something that most of the people in the world, a problem that most of the people in the world would die to have. And I understand you're working on developing world problems, and it goes to the same thing I end almost every show with. And Sharish, you fed into this for me, which is you talked about the importance of family and health. In California, the basically Latino or Latinx community is actually the longest lived group of people. They work in fields, they breathe pesticides, they drink too much Coke, they have huge obesity problem, and yet somehow they're the longest lived group of people. And the only explanation that we scientists have figured out is that it's because they have a very strong family structure. If it's not necessary that it has to be family, but you have to have good social relationships with other people if you're going to want to live for a long time. In the Nordic countries, people don't get married very much, but they have a social structure where they get together in the sauna and they help each other and they do these things together all the time. So they have a extended family, just like you two are family, even though you're not really family. He's not really your uncle. He's just sort of your uncle.
Yes.
The extended family, and that's something that we can all do and make happen for ourselves. And so, as I say in every show, every person that you meet is a door into another world and can offer you something of value. So it's worthwhile to open yourself to
to the connections that you can make, because that will, among other things, extend your life and health.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Unmute.
So as our lives get longer, this is going to force us to take a longer perspective as this mental change occurs, as we start to realize that, well, we will live long enough for it to be our problem. You know, that was a big sentiment during the industrial era, is by the time any of all this pollution would become a problem, they'd be long gone. And now they are, of course, and it's our problem. And well, it seems like it's going to keep being our problem because, you know, life expectancies are getting substantially longer. And as politicians and businessmen especially, you know, begin to live longer, I think they're going to give up kind of the survival race of it and take the humanitarian aspect of it into consideration when forming legislation and corporate policies and things of that sort. You know, we were designed essentially around being born and die. You know, genetically, our bodies inherently want to end themselves eventually. And, you know, our bodies are rather dumb. You know, you have to give it absolutely everything it needs for it to quit freaking out and stop killing itself. And, you know, our mindset evolved around that. So we're still very much almost like a death-based sort of culture, you know, and that's what drives these short-term nihilistic views. So adopting this being forced to accept the long-term, you know, the 100-year, the 200-year effects of actions you make, this is going to inherently force us as a species to finally start breaking out of that evolutionary barrier and to be able to actually push forward with long-term vision and with, you know, an enlightened view about how we want to grow things. So that's a bit disorganized, but again, that's just kind of my concluding thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Jennifer, what's your concluding remarks? And we want to congratulate you for your elections. And hopefully when you become mayor for your city, you will invest and you will make a good policy for your education system. Yes.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I agree. Education is very important. We have a lot of information that is not given out as much as it should be to everybody. You know, if we really got this information out and distributed to everyone, it's going to make a huge difference in the progresses that we can make. And just wanted to kind of hit on the point that we made earlier on, actually in the forum, about that. Depending on what part of the world that you're in, life extension is going to come in a lot of ways, because, you know, some people just need clean running water to help, you know, have life extension, and, you know, a roof over their head and things like that. Life extension really is anything that we're doing that's going to be helping people prolong life. So there's places where we just have to get our basic needs met, you know, in certain areas. And our city here is actually in Camden, New Jersey. And it's one of the poorest cities that actually is in the United States. So there's a lot of things that we still have to do here, just for basic needs, making sure that everybody has clean water, everybody has a house, everybody has a safe house, you know, and utilities on the time, and access to food and things that in other parts of the country, they may have already sorted this out, and things we have to work on here. But, you know, really, it's good that you have this topic of life extension, because it is really the underlying also like framework of the societal things that we should be putting into place, is to really have everybody at the top quality of life that we can have, and then to just continuously look for how we can extend life as long as possible with quality of life. You know, sometimes people don't even want to think about life extension because they're sick and they're in pain, and you know, maybe other factors that are constantly weighing on them, and they're like, well, would I be like this, you know, for hundreds of years or thousands of years or prolonged years, you know? And really, it's good if we can get through to them. Obviously that we would be trying to extend everyone's life at a top quality of life, and just to keep working on that. We have enough technology and communication technology now, and people that are working on all these different issues around the world, that we really can start to put these things into place now, and start, especially, hopefully everybody will think about running for local offices, at least, and try to encourage as many people to do that, because you can make a big difference, in your town or city. And if we, start and we all network and things like that, we can go really far past a lot of the types of things that people are experiencing, and we can make a big difference in problem solving that together.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Alinaz Mahmoud Khoyum, you want to add any concluding remarks for today? Unmute, please. Unmute, please.
Actually, I think this is very necessary to talk much more about these issues, but it is very important issue, But the whole country, whole world is suffering from various trouble. If you want to do something, if you want to achieve our target, then we have to solve the social various trouble which is going on in the whole world. That the people is dying from the war battle. The people is dying war and battle. People is dying for malnutrition and many
Preventable
social.
things. They're dying from things that are
Mhm.
preventable. We already know, we can already
Yeah.
stop that
Yes.
stuff. There's a lot of things that we could stop
For that
already.
reason, after Second World War, we know the democracy was full in all the nations. But it is very unfortunate that now the trend of the world is very dangerous for authoritarian government. You see everywhere one kind of authoritarian government is ruling the countries. For that reason, it is very difficult for the economic distribution, proper distribution among the people. It is one of the very major cause for people's health and their everything. So for their living, there is a lot of problem that has been created already. That
Hmm.
we should take care to change the situation on behalf of any philosophy. It is the question of philosophy, that the democratic rule until established, then it will be trouble for all the humans. But we need to do that thing. It is very important. This is the very baseline, It is very important, basic thing. That it should come on the baseline, that is the democratic philosophy. Without democracy, your economic and social cultural distribution cannot be affordable, and nobody can afford their social rights and the state rights. That is the question. So we should think about it. And the technology is very important thing. The technology is unfortunately that is already using by the some important groups, some groups of the people. They are handling all the technologies, and they are doing business with that thing. So the technology and other all the things should use to the people for their welfare and for their good living. That is the issue. So yeah, I think that we should think about it, and the political and social change should very. It is very important for the whole world, and then it will reduce the trouble. I think so. So we should think about it, and I request you, all of you, to discuss it again and again and again, and we should discuss, continue to know the actual truth. Whatever we should do, that we should find out through our discussion. I am very glad to participate with all of you, and especially my son Sharif is
Thank you.
very nice boy, and I love him very much. And here is
Thank you.
very
Thank you. Thank you.
and here is very important person is here. I'm very glad. I'm very happy to meet with them and to gather some knowledge from their valuable discussion. I think
Thank you.
it will be very important thing for my life. I hope that we'll meet again. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We arrange our this kind of discussion every Monday to Friday. So hopefully we will invite you more, and we want to invite everyone again and again, because this kind of discussion actually help us. Dialogue is ultimately the most important part of the knowledge. The more we do dialogue, open dialogue, we can solve the problem. Even example, we can solve the political issues to social issues to scientific issues. Many issues we can solve only through the dialogue. So we believe in open dialogue. We want to welcome from around the world, and hopefully through this process we can learn from each other. Thank you, Professor Donald. Thank you, Mr. Aaron. Thank you, Jennifer, and wish you all the best for your upcoming elections. And thank you, Ali Nawaz
Thank you.
Mahmood, for your excellent contribution for World Talent Economy Forum, and share our content as much as possible. I'm sure your community will learn a lot from our open dialogue. Thank you everyone for joining today's
Thank
session.
you.
Thank you. Bye bye
Thank
and
you.
take care.
Thank
Assalamu
you.
alaikum.
Bye
Have a good night, everybody.
Bye bye.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Bye.